Hello, scholars. Welcome to our last two lessons in our iReady book. We are starting on page 229. This is kind of an interesting standard because it's elements of modern fiction. And on the surface, that sounds very bizarre, but this is something we've actually done quite a bit of. If you think back to Purple Hibiscus, we talked about plot. We talked about character types, but we're going to call that character traits. We talked about theme, right? And the plot also includes things like incidents. So this is something that we've done a bunch just quite a while ago. In this example, they have an older version and a modern or newer version. And this chart below is comparing these two comics. So in the first one, we have the old king who touches his daughter and turns her to gold by accident. And he says, "My daughter, what have I done?" Over here, we have a pop star who doesn't get any privacy anymore, and she says, "I know I wanted to be rich and famous, but what was I thinking?" In the chart, both of them are teaching the same theme of be careful what you wish for. However, in the traditional tale, the king is granted a wish, turns his daughter to gold, and then regrets wish. Over here, the pop star grants her wish to be famous, has no privacy, and regrets wish. So they still have similarities. The character type over here is regretful hero whose greed causes him to lose what he loves most. Over here, regretful heroine, which is just the female word for hero, whose greed ends up making her life worse. So both of them have greed. And again, both of them are connecting back to this idea of be careful what you wish for. So down here, by comparing a modern story to an earlier traditional version, readers can recognize how certain themes, character types, and events have withstood the test of time. Here we go. This is a story that you might be a little bit familiar with. This is a traditional and a modern version of Mulan. Here we go. Originally, we're thinking of legend, so I'm going to say fairy tale here. And then I believe Miss Clark, Art Clark, had you write fairy tales. Or we can talk about folk tales, right? Long ago in ancient China, vicious barbarians invaded the land, causing the emperor to demand that every family provide a soldier to protect the country's borders. Though the emperor was old and frail, he put on his own armor and prepared for battle himself, for he had no son to offer, only a daughter. So here are just so far as only sons could fight. Just as the emperor picked up his sword, however, a masked warrior challenged him. "If I defeat you, you must allow me to fight in your place." The challenger swiftly won, and when he removed his mask, the emperor learned that his opponent was actually a she, his own daughter. Hua Mulan. Because women were not allowed in the army, Mulan cut off all her hair and dressed in men's clothing to disguise herself. The war with the barbarians lasted for 12 years. During this time, Mulan rose to the rank of general. Only after the fighting was over did she reveal herself to be the emperor's daughter. Mulan's boldness made her one of China's greatest warriors. So obviously this is very similar to the Disney movie Mulan because it was originally a folktale and then Disney turned it into a movie, right? But that also goes to show how these events and this plot can stand the test of time. So take a second down here and see if you can fill out just this section. What is the theme of Mulan's ballad? What is the pattern or events, which is the plot? And then what are the character types? Okay. What types of people do we see here? Okay. Pause the video, try that out, and be back in a minute. Our first box here is that the theme, there's two options. One, women can succeed in male roles, or that you should go into danger for your family. For the plot, we have a quick summary. There's a war where only men can fight. She challenges the emperor and wins, so then she has to fight in his place. She goes to war and she becomes a general. Our last box for character types is that Mulan is a strong, fearless heroine who becomes a great warrior. And again, the reason this is a type is because you have seen that type of character before. That's Katniss in the Hunger Games, or that's Wonder Woman, right? This is a type that we've seen before, almost like a stereotype, but it can also be positive. Before we can do this next column, we have to read the next passage. Helmeted Hero by Travis Spencer. This is realistic fiction, so obviously we're going to think of me. We're going to think of Ms. Otomo and Ms. Ruiz and Reyes and all 13 of your English teachers. Eric sighed as Tony Rogers limped off the field. So we know there's some kind of sports injury happening. The Badgers were down by 3 points with seconds left, and now they were down a man as well. Despite losing his best player, Eric refused to admit defeat to the Barbarians, so he called the last play. The center snapped the ball, and as Eric fell back to pass, he saw an open receiver on the field wearing Tony's uniform. This is the person who left, so we don't know who that is. Complete with Rogers and 38 on the back. With no time to think, Eric threw the ball and watched the guy take off to the 30-yard line, the 20, the 10, touchdown. Now we know this is football. And some of you may have known from Snapped. Hollering with joy, Eric rushed toward his team's newest hero. But as he grew closer, Eric gasped. The player confirmed his suspicions by removing his helmet to reveal the grinning face of Tony's sister, Julia. So now take a second, before we even look at this, go back to your chart and work on your chart. So hopefully you realize that they have the same theme, that women can succeed in male roles or that we should go into danger for our family. And in this case, football is the danger that Julia went into, especially because she is a woman. So there is a little bit more danger for her because if she gets piled on, that's going to hurt more. For our pattern of events or plot summary, Eric's team is down a player. An anonymous ANONYMOUS person helps. It's Tony's sister. And our last box for the character type is a strong, fearless heroine becomes a great football player. And again, we have seen this in those cheesy movies where like the ice hockey player has to become a great figure skater or something like that. These are very common character types. So now go back over here and look at our multiple choice. How does the author, never went away, does the author convey the same theme found in the Mulan story? So make sure you are looking at the theme from the Mulan story to answer that question. So now we are on page 232. We're looking at myths. And I believe you guys learned some myths in 6th grade. And also in Mr. Hoffman's class. And a lot of you have really enjoyed those graphic novels we have of the myths in my classroom. So some of you might be a little bit familiar with this story. The Labyrinth by Emily Fowles. The Return of My Minotaur. Long ago in ancient Greece, the great King Minos of Crete built a giant maze called a labyrinth. So again, if you don't know that word, we just found out it's a giant maze. Inside this complex pathway, he imprisoned a ferocious minotaur, a creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull. As revenge for his son's death in Athens, every year Minos made the king of Athens choose 7 Athenian men and 7 women to be locked in the labyrinth and sacrificed to the horrible minotaur, which means they died. During the 3rd year, a brave warrior named Theseus, son of the king of Athens, volunteered to be among the men chosen to face the minotaur. He wished to defeat the creature and end his kingdom's sacrifices, no matter the risk to himself. When Theseus arrived in Crete, he told King Minos of his intention to kill the minotaur, but Minos didn't believe Theseus would succeed. What the king did not know, however, was that his daughter, Ariadne, had fallen in love with the Athenian hero. Unable to bear the thought of losing him to the endless maze, Ariadne provided Theseus with a ball of string. She then instructed him to unwind it as he journeyed through the labyrinth so he could find his way back to her. Heeding Ariadne's advice, Theseus ventured into the labyrinth alone, leaving a trail of string behind him. The maze was a sprawling puzzle, and Theseus struggled to find his way through its twists and turns. Whenever he advanced down the wrong path, he used the string to help him retrace his steps. The sound of the Minotaurs roaring in the distance frightened him, but he kept the image of Ariadne in his mind and steeled his resolve. At last Theseus entered the heart of the labyrinth where the Minotaur was waiting for him. Man and beast engaged in a long, fierce battle until Theseus finally swung his sword one last time and slew the monster, ending his people's terror once and for all. Then, using the string as a guide, Theseus made his way back through the labyrinth's dark, twisting depths to Ariadne's welcoming arms. So take a second, figure out your theme. Okay. And your gist. What's our summary going to be? We're thinking about it in the same way we did this other one, right? What is the theme? What is the plot? Take a second and think about it. We're not doing the whole chart, but you should be able to fill that out. A simple theme here would be something like be brave or make good choices because his good choice was to bring in a ball of string. And our gist here is pretty simple. I'll read it once and then go a little slower. The gist is that there is a maze with a monster. The king's daughter loves a man, so she decides to help him. The man uses her string to navigate. He kills the monster and gets out alive. So one more time. There is a maze with a monster. The king's daughter loves the man and helps him. The man uses her string to navigate. He kills the monster and he gets out alive. So now we're looking at page 233, and this is going to be our modern take on the same tale. So this woman gives us a little hint that we're looking for any characters that are similar to those in the Greek myth. So over here, we want to take a second. We have Theseus, who's the son. We have the love interest. And then we also have the king. So those are the people we're looking for. The king is the bad guy here because he's the one who built the maze. Theseus is the hero. And then Ariadne is the love interest, already indicated by a heart. Here we go. Of Monsters and Mazes by Lena Lang. Wow. Thea stared at the maze of hallways with wide eyes as a congested flow of students passed by her on each side. She had never before set foot in a school this huge, but her family's move across the state had left her with no choice. Her dad had landed an amazing job opportunity, so she had agreed to sacrifice all her old friends and everything she knew for the good of her family. Even though Thea knew she was doing the right thing, however, it didn't stop her from feeling frightened and overwhelmed. Thea glanced down at the school map she held in her hands. Her boyfriend, Aaron, had emailed it to her last night. He had said that he found it online and hoped it would make her journey to this confusing new place a little easier. That's nice. Thea sighed. All she wanted was to spend time with Aaron right now, but he was hundreds of miles away and she was stuck in a labyrinth of orange lockers. And now she had less than 5 minutes to find her way to first period biology class where the dreaded Mrs. Minerva awaited her. Putting an unhappy face there because of this word dreaded is a clue that Minerva is not good. The student aide in the front office had given Thea a warning about the teacher when she had picked up her class schedule. The word monster had been mentioned. Thea navigated through the endless hallways, using the map to guide her. Each one looked the same, rows of lockers and doors that were carbon copies of each other. Even with the map, she found herself making wrong turns and having to retrace steps. The bell rang and Thea groaned, anticipating the battle that would inevitably occur when she walked into class late. When she reached room 201, Thea gathered her courage and began to face the teacher's wrath. Again, that's not good. But as she opened the door, a smiling face greeted her. "You must be Thea," Mrs. Minerva said. "I'm so glad you didn't get totally lost. The school is a maze." In shock, Thea sat down at an empty desk. Some monster, she thought, realizing the aide had just been messing with the new kid. Thea couldn't wait for the day to end so she could tell Aaron about her epic battle and how she heroically conquered her fear. But first, she'd have to use the map to find the exit. So already you can see some similarities here. We have a monster. We have a love interest. We have a maze. We have a map in this one, ball of string in this one. But what's the theme over here? And what's the gist? When you figure those out, you can start on your multiple choice questions. What aspects of the Theseus and Minotaur myth has the author of Monsters and Mazes, so it's the second text, drawn to tell Thea's story? To put this question another way, what do they have in common? Right? When it says has the author drawn from, that means that there's some similarities here. So that's what you're looking for number 1. For number 2, what shared theme is suggested by Theseus's and Thea's situations? Shared is the big word here. If it only applies to one of them, you cannot use it. It has to be something they have in common again. And then we have a short response. Now, just so you know, after this, there is an essay. So if you want to practice for your essay by doing this short response, you are welcome to do so, but this is not going to be on the Google form because I understand that you have a full essay that's going to happen over the weekend, so it doesn't make sense to test your writing twice. But if you want to practice with this, you absolutely can. The important detail here is reinterpret. So it's what is going to change or stay the same. And that's what we're looking at, telling a new story. So it's a little bit like a comparison kind of a question. As always, if you have any comments or questions, you can leave a comment below or on our Google Classroom. Otherwise, stay safe and make good choices. Bye!